everybody joining us. We have the question and answer, and we also have the chat option. And if you raise your hand, we're going to give you the mic so you can ask questions. Our guest speaker, Jennifer, is quality and training manager for kids and teens for Berlitz all over the world. And she is going to bring us a little bit about her home country. So, Jen, the floor is yours. Please.
Okay.
Take it
We
over.
can start.
We're going to close our cameras. And whenever you want people to just react, just let them know. They'll react in the chat or they can ask to speak.
Okay, fantastic. Good. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to share a little bit about my country with all of you. So first of all, my name is Jennifer Aranda. I am currently living in Bogota, Colombia, but I'm originally from Canada. I'm from Toronto. And essentially what we're going to do today is I'm going to give you a little tour around my country, tell you a little bit about this beautiful, amazing country, and hopefully maybe debunk a few of the misconceptions that there are about Canada. And I really hope that I can leave you with a strong desire to come and visit all the different places that Canada has to offer. We're not going to be going through all of the cities, of course, in Canada, but we are going to be going through some principal ones, okay? So without further ado, let's get started. The first question that I have for you guys is, what comes to mind when you think of Canada? What do you think? What are some of the things that you think about, or some of the ideas that are maybe in your mind that are related to Canada? Snow, yes.
Yes, we have Ricardo saying snow, Jen.
Absolutely, snow, good. Anything else? For sure, cold and snow are definitely. The maple leaf, yeah, absolutely. The CN Tower, good. That's very specific and great. Good. Anything else that you guys can think about? The landscapes, yeah, for sure, Ricardo. Lots of beautiful landscapes in Canada. Absolutely. Okay, so let me tell you some of the few that I know about it. That hockey, good. I'm glad that I saw that one. Hockey for sure. So let's take a look at some of the ones that I have. For sure, cold weather. Yeah. Anytime you talk about Canada, people are going to say snow and cold weather. I've heard some people ask if these are our houses, if we live in igloos because it's so cold. And yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the winters are tough. There are some tough winters depending on where you are in Canada. And we're gonna talk about that for sure. Another one is hockey. So Ricardo, I think you said that one. Absolutely. Canada is known for hockey. It's the national sport. We have some teams that are very important to the country, for sure, hockey. We have maple syrup. So Luis talked about the maple and the maple leaf, and that being, it's even part of our flag, right? So it's actually at center point in our flag. But maple syrup is another really important one that comes from the maple tree. It's actually very sweet, very delicious, and very, very Canadian. Another one that is really something that identifies as, or that a lot of people think about when they think about Canada, is the moose. And the moose really is a representation of our wildlife. You'll find it in a lot of souvenirs that are Canadian themed. You'll see it in a lot of city flags as well. The moose is very representative of Canada. So yeah, absolutely. But these are some representations. Sure, there's some stereotypes, but they're not it. I mean, there's more to Canada than just, the cold weather and hockey and snow. There's a lot more to this country. So come explore Canada with me. And we're going to start off by looking at the first thing, that is location. So where is Canada? Where is it located? It's actually in North America. It's right above the United States. So all of that land there on up, for the most part, is Canadian. It's Canadian land. It's actually one of the biggest countries. I think Canada is the second largest country in total area in the world. It stretches from the Pacific all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, and it covers 5 different time zones. So it's actually a very, very big. When we look at the weather, absolutely, yes, the temperatures in the winter are tough. And even the summer in some of the country, in some of the cities within Canada are tough as well. We can, for example, in the coastal regions, the temperatures are mild, and in the winter, it's rainy more than snowy. It's not so snowy in the coastal areas. But once you go into onto all the cities in the inner country, that's when you're going to find that the summer temperatures can reach from 25 degrees Celsius all the way to 30 to 35 degrees Celsius in the summer. So the summers are hot, they're humid. In some areas, they're more dry, but yes, we have hot summers. And of course, the winters are hot, very cold as well. So there are two extremes. The winter tends to be very cold, especially in the inner cities. It can reach under 30 degrees with wind chill. So because of the wind, it feels like it's minus 30, minus 25. So it does get really, really chilly. The northern part of Canada, so the Northern Territories, that's what they're called, the Northern Territories, they're very icy, and they're mostly covered with permafrost, because they're just consistently and constantly and snowy. So it's a lot of people ask me, are they inhabited? Do people live in the northern part of Canada? And the answer is absolutely. Yeah, there are areas, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. There are areas in the northern part of Canada where we have Aboriginal communities living, and definitely lots of different types of communities that live in northern Canada.
Just a minute, Jen. Ricardo is saying that your sound is cutting a little bit. It is not cutting for me. It's not breaking up for me. Guys, can you check all of the others that are in the talk? Is the sound going bad or something? Because for me, it's just fine. Thanks, Carlos. Ricardo, maybe it's your internet connection or something there. Thanks, Ricardo. Sorry, Jen. Just go ahead.
It's okay. Yeah, no worries. Okay, perfect. So something else that I want to tell about the weather is one of the things that I really love about Canada is the fact that we have the 4 seasons. So regardless of where you are, the temperatures will change. So we do have spring, we do have summer and autumn, fall, and we have winter. So you will experience these 4 seasons throughout the year, which is great. For example, where I am right now in Bogota, it's rainy and chilly the year round, right? That's always kind of the temperature. So it's not ideal because it's always the same, and you can do different activities depending on what season you're in. Whereas in Canada, for the most part, we do have those 4 different seasons. The next thing I want to talk about are the provinces. So you might know that in the United States, you have states, right? So you have the different states within the country. In Canada, we do not have states, we have provinces. And in total, we have 10 provinces and 3 territories, okay? Provinces usually are the ones that are connected to the United States or border the United States, whereas the territories are the ones that are north part of the country. Every territory and every province has its capital, okay? So, what languages? So Canada has 2 official languages, and the official languages for the country, English and French. Yeah. For the most part, English is spoken in most of the country, and it is the principal language. But when we look at a province like Quebec is mostly French speaking. So most of their inhabitants speak French, and English is the secondary language. I actually went to Quebec very frequently, and you feel like you're in a different country simply because French is spoken. It's the first language, really, okay, in Quebec. So major cities, what are some major cities that you know about? I know that we have, the regular ones, but I want to know from you, what are the major cities that you have heard of from Canada?
So guys, type in the chat, what cities do you know from Canada?
Vancouver, yes, absolutely. Vancouver's one of the main ones. Somebody said CN Tower. Where is the CN Tower? Toronto. Absolutely. Toronto is another one. Good. Toronto. Absolutely. Everyone knows Toronto. It's one of the major cities. Montreal. Montreal is one of my favorites in Canada. Good. I'm glad that you guys, Quebec. Quebec is a province. Absolutely. And you have Quebec City within Quebec. Absolutely. Good. Okay. Manitoba is a province as well. Good. Okay. Awesome. Ricardo, I've never been to Canada. All right. So what are the cities that we're going to talk about today? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour on these cities. We're going to look at Vancouver. We're going to look at Montreal. We're going to talk about Ottawa. And finally, look at Toronto. Okay, great. So Vancouver is the first city that we're going to explore. It is located in the province of British Columbia. It's right on the coast. Okay. One interesting fact about Vancouver is that it is the most ethnically and linguistically diverse city in Canada. Yeah, there are 52% of the residents in Vancouver are not native English speakers. Think about that, right? About 50% of residents belong to visible minorities in Canada. So in the city, right? So if we're talking about a huge population of the city not being native Canadians, these are people from different parts of the world that have migrated to Vancouver.
Really, Jen, this is really cool. So it's like half the city,
half the population. Yeah, half the city
populated by people who were not born in Canada.
Yeah, they're visible minorities. Yeah, and if you think about it, 50% are not native English speakers.
Right? For example, is Vancouver the city that you have this, like, the biggest amount of people that come from other countries? Is Vancouver the one? Toronto. Yeah,
Toronto's the one. So when we talk about Toronto, and I'll talk a little bit about this, but the fact that Toronto has the biggest community, the biggest foreign community that has come over, immigrant community, it tells you a lot about Toronto. It tells you a lot about that this is the city that people usually migrate to.
We have a question from also, Ricardo, Jennifer. What is the most visited city in Canada?
Oh, the most visited? I'm not sure. I would think Toronto because it is the major city in Canada. But I would also think Montreal. Montreal is very visited as well. So I would say it's between the two. Most visited.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to. Oh, so Ricardo says I'd like to visit Montreal. There you go. Well, yeah, it's definitely one of the most visited. I would say it's one of my favorite cities in the country. Awesome. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about Vancouver. Let's look at what we're going to do, and the way that we're going to run this moving forward is I'm going to show you some landmarks within those cities that at least I've visited or that I know are the most commonly or most visited places within the city. Okay. So let's start with Vancouver and let's look at the science world. Okay, the Science Center is run by a nonprofit organization, and the structure looks like this giant mirrored glass ball, right on the top. And what this mirrored ball is, it's actually an OmniMax theater. So if you've ever seen or you've been to an OmniMax theater, you actually feel immersed. So when you watch a movie, you're a little bit slanted, right? You're a little bit slanted and you get to see a movie and you almost feel like you're immersed into that movie. It's really amazing. And they show really amazing films within this OmniMax. It's the world's largest domed movie theater, and you can find it in Vancouver. So this center, it's a science center, and it has a lot of interactive exhibits, a lot of different displays, and a lot of different topics that you're going to find year-round. And it changes every year. They have different shows and different displays that they really promote for kids and adults to come to the science center, the science world, right? One thing that is really interesting about it, or one of the things that I really like about it, is that it's covered. It's a covered structure. So if it's winter or regardless of the weather, it's definitely a place that people visit because it's covered. So you're always kind of shielded from whatever the weather is, whether it's really warm or really cold in the winter. However, remember that Vancouver, because it's a coastal city, it's not as cold as Toronto, for example, or as Montreal. It doesn't reach the really, really low temperatures. It does get cold and there is a lot of rainfall in the winter, but you're not going to have those really brutal cold winters like you would in the inner cities.
Jen, Van der Laan has said that his brother lives in Vancouver and he works team has only 2 Canadians and 10 foreigners from other countries, just like you mentioned.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. Cool.
But this movie theater you're shown, are there others around the world, Jen?
There is
like
one,
that?
and actually, yeah, in Boston. There's one in Boston, and I used to live in Boston. That's why I know. In the Science Museum in Boston, there's an Omnimax theater as well in the Science Museum. Yeah, so
Wow.
there's one there too. Yeah, so I've been to those. Good. We have another one called, the next thing that I want to show you is Stanley Park. This is absolutely an amazing park. And I really wanted to show you guys parks because I think that we think that Canada is very, this concrete jungle. And I'm sure it is. I mean, it is. There's a lot of cities that have a lot of buildings and those are beautiful. You will find that in cities like Montreal, in Toronto, in Vancouver, there are parks that are absolutely amazing and that offer so much of natural beauty and just free outdoor activities that are great for anyone who is visiting. So this is Stanley Park. It opened in 1888. And really what you need to know about Stanley Park, it is very cared for by Vancouver and the city. And they have they always strive to accomplish these 3 things. One, to preserve and protect the ecology of Stanley Park. They do a lot of work to protect everything that inhabits the park and all of course, the ecology there. Ensure the sustainability of the park and also enhance Vancouver's livability through the enjoyment of the park. So we know that to consider a city a livable city, it has to be a place that has nature and that has parks and that has places for us to visit. And it's not only buildings, right? And that's why Stanley Park is so important to Vancouver, because they really do think that it adds to the livability of the city. People enjoy this park and they go here to have a relaxing weekend and just to really kind of move away from the busy city. So I thought that was really interesting about this park.
How big is it, Jen? Like how
it's
the area?
400 hectares.
Wow.
Of natural West Coast rainforest. It's huge. It's really, really big.
Wow.
So from the park, there you can see views of the water, you can see views of mountains, and there's a seawall. So if you look at this picture over here, this is the seawall, which protects the city really and the park from being just covered with water because of high tides, right? So they really structured this wall to protect the area from any flooding because of high tides. So yeah, and the park offers a lot of different experiences. So if you do go to the park, there's a lot of things that you can do, including Canada's largest aquarium. So there's an aquarium that you can visit, and I found this picture that was really cool. They have a Santa scuba diver for the holiday season, which I thought was really cool as part of an attraction in the aquarium. There are also wildlife tours that you can do. There are trails. There are places to eat. There are historical landmarks. There's a lot to do in this park, right? One of the things that happened in 2006, December 15th of 2006, there was a terrible windstorm and it damaged a lot of the park. Unfortunately, a lot of that seawall that I was talking about, it damaged it. It damaged a lot of the park itself. And what they did was they started asking for donations to restore the park. And the donations started pouring in. And it took them 2 years. Of course, very efficient, the Canadians. It took them 2 years to restore the park. Yeah, and people continued to donate to keep it what it is. And so that, the people and the residents of Vancouver can continue to really enjoy the park. Yeah, so this is one of my favorite spots in the city. So those are the two places that I wanted to talk about in Vancouver. We can spend hours talking about all these different amazing places within the cities, but for purposes of time, we're going to move on. And we're going to move on to Ottawa. Ottawa is located in the province of Ontario, and it is the capital of Canada. Yeah. An interesting fact about Ottawa is that it is the 7th coldest capital city in the world. So it's one of the capital cities, but it's the 7th coldest because it gets cold, very, very cold. I've been to Ottawa, and when I went, it was February, and it was absolutely freezing to the point that we had to stop when we were walking around Parliament Hill, which we're going to talk about. We really had to go into restaurants or stores to really shield ourselves from the cold until, just kind of get some body heat and then be able to go back out and walk again, because it's just really, really cold. So let's talk a little bit about Ottawa. So because Ottawa is the capital city, of course, we need to talk about Parliament Hill. And Parliament Hill is and I have it right here, is the home to the historic Neo-Gothic Parliament buildings. Okay, so here you're going to find offices of the members of Parliament. You're going to find the House of Commons, and you're also going to find the Senate. But what's really amazing is what I've said here. It's neo-Gothic. The buildings are absolutely gorgeous. So yes, you're going to go see these government buildings, but you're also going to see the architecture of these marvelous structures, and they're just absolutely breathtaking when you're there. So definitely a stop that you need to make when you're in Ottawa and you're visiting the capital. If you have the privilege of being there when it's Canada Day, then you're going to, which is the July 1st. If you have the privilege of being there on Canada Day, they have amazing concerts, parades, a show of lights, and a show of fireworks. It is beautiful to be there in the summer, and especially if you're able to be there during Canada Day. Okay, so definitely Parliament Hill, a place to go visit. One of my favorite and one of my personal favorites to go visit when in Ottawa is the Rideau Canal. The Rideau Canal connects Ottawa to Lake Ontario and also the St. Lawrence River. So it's a really big canal, 202 kilometers long. It is very, very long. And one of the things that I really like about it, or that I think is really cool, is that in the summer, you can travel by a little boat and just kind of go through the canal. But in the winter, a part of it becomes an ice skating rink. And it's actually the longest ice skating rink in the world. So people, as you can see in my image, actually take advantage and are able to ice skate in this canal.
Is the same canal, frozen.
Yes, it is, but frozen.
Wow.
But frozen.
Wow.
Which is really cool, right? So what happened? Why was this canal built, and why was it created? It was created in 1832, and it was a precaution in case of war with the United States. That's pretty interesting, right? It was created a while back, and it was created basically as a precaution. One of the cool things about this canal is the UNESCO named the canal a World Heritage Site. These sites are chosen by UNESCO for having cultural, historical, scientific, or other form of significance. These sites contain cultural and natural heritage, and they're considered to be outstanding value to humanity. So if you do go to Ottawa, definitely a stop, and you have two options. If you go in the summer or in the spring, you can see the water flowing and you have a different experience. But if you go to the winter, you'll still have an amazing experience because you can ice skate. And again, being the longest ice skating rink in the world. So there you go. Cool. All right. So let's continue here with my favorite city. And I know that I've said that Montreal is one of my favorite, but Toronto is definitely close to my heart because I am from Toronto. It's located in the province of Ontario. It is not the capital, of course, of Canada. We've already discussed that Ottawa is the capital, but it is the largest city in Canada and the 4th largest city in North America. Okay, so it is a huge city. An interesting fact about Toronto, and going back to Luis's comment, is that Toronto is a diverse, multicultural city. And the population in the city really reflects that important role that Toronto has had for immigration. I think that, you know, when I asked you guys, what cities do you know in Canada? Toronto was one of the major ones. And because of that, because it's the most well-known city, it's the city that really a lot of immigrants will get to and will settle into Toronto. Personally, I think that Toronto does a very good job of welcoming immigrants and being a multicultural city. It really is. You have restaurants from all these different places in the world. You have all these languages, all these cultures. And I think that Toronto does a really good job in highlighting them and giving them a space in the city, which is really nice. So we have, for
lots
example,
of people in the chat, Jen, are saying
Yeah.
that they love Toronto. It's their favorite city. Ricardo says, certainly, and I love this city. And it's like, just like you said, they just
Yeah.
love Toronto.
It is. It's a great city. I get emotional just thinking about it because it really is. So we have, for example, the Greek festival and the Italian festival and the Colombian festival. And there's a huge Brazilian community in Toronto as well. I remember the World Cup when Spain won, but Brazil was doing well. It was crazy. So you will see all of these communities in Toronto have their space and be able to really keep their customs and be part of the city nonetheless, right? So I thought that that was really, really good. An important and interesting fact is more than 50% of the residents belong to a visible minority in Toronto. So that's a group of people, kind of like Vancouver. Right? So yeah, absolutely. Let's get into Toronto. So here I'm going to spend a little bit more time because I know more places, right? So I can tell you a little bit more about these places. So the first one is the Toronto Islands. And you might be thinking Toronto has islands, and yeah, it's really interesting. Just a short ferry ride away from downtown Toronto, you get to something called the Toronto Islands that are actually 15 little islands that make up this park. And you can walk from island to island with bridges. There are bridges that have been built to connect the little islands, but there's so much to do. So it's a great plan with the family in the summertime, right? So you can do, there's an amusement park in the islands. There are beaches, so you can see the beach over here. There's a cute, cool, amazing maze, a huge maze that you have to find your way around in this island. Camping sites, nature-based walks, restaurants, there's lots to do. There's even accommodations now in the islands, but there's lots and lots to do. It's actually very interesting that this is the largest urban car-free community in North America. No cars, right? So it's actually just walking, enjoying nature, taking advantage of bike riding, roller skating. So yeah, lots to do, a great plan, an activity for the family during the summer, of course. Why? Because it's outdoors. So in the winter, definitely not the best location. The next thing I want to talk about is my ultimate favorite place in Toronto. I can spend a full day in this place, and it is the Royal Ontario Museum, for short, ROM, the ROM. The ROM is absolutely stunning. If you've been, you can back me up and say, yes, it's absolutely great. It was founded in 1914, and it has everything: art, culture, nature, historical artifacts that you are just absolutely amazed when you go to this museum. It is among the top 10 cultural institutions in North America, and it is the largest museum in Canada. Okay. One of the things that you need to know about the ROM is look at this structure. It is absolutely breathtaking, just the structure itself. It has a collection of 13 million artworks, cultural objects, natural historical specimens, 40 galleries and exhibits. So, I mean, you can spend the whole day here and just be in complete awe of everything that you see. My favorite exhibit is the dinosaur exhibit. It is absolutely breathtaking to see what they have and the different fossils that they have in their possession. So absolutely amazing. However, the ROM is mostly known for their collection of Chinese and ancient Egyptian art, American ethnology, and Canadian arts and crafts, right? So the Aboriginal community arts and crafts, you're going to find that here. So a great place if you're in Toronto, and again, whether it's really cold, it's covered, so you're okay. And if it's really hot in the summer, muggy, you'll be fine as well. It's a completely covered museum, great regardless of the time of the year. The museum attracts more than 1 million visitors every year, making it the most visited museum in Canada. Okay, so there you go. This is a great one as well. And of course, we could not talk about Toronto without talking about the CN Tower. There I am. I'm actually coming from the islands, that first location we talked about, that's the ferry. I was coming from the islands going back into the city, and you have this spectacular view of the city and all of downtown core Toronto. The CN Tower. So the CN Tower, the first question that I have for you is, do you know what a freestanding structure is? When I say it's a freestanding structure, do you know what that means? Anybody? Do we have?
Let's see if they take a chance to answer in the chat.
Worries. If you don't know, worries.
Freestanding structure.
Yeah. No worries. A freestanding structure is a structure that stands on its own foundation or on its own base without any attachments or anything else. Yeah. So the CN Tower actually in very windy weather will actually do this, right? Because it literally stands on its foundation. It's a very strong foundation, of course, but there's nothing else that kind of, no other structure that holds its size, right? So yes, a lot of people ask me, does it swerve a little bit in the really windy weather? Yes, it does. Okay, so the CN Tower used to be, or it held the record for the tallest freestanding structure for 32 years until 2007. So 2007, when it was surpassed by the Burj Khalifa. Yeah, and it was the world's tallest tower until 2009, when it was surpassed by the Canton Tower. Okay, but it used to have all of these amazing records, and it was the highest freestanding building until very recently. In 1995, the CN Tower was declared one of the modern 7 wonders of the world by the American Society of Civil Engineers. And I thought that was really cool. So if you're ever in Toronto, definitely CN Tower is definitely a place to go visit. But why was it created? What did they want to do with the CN Tower? What was meant for the CN Tower? Well, the CN Tower was created to be a communication tower and for TV and radio and to serve the Toronto area. That's what it was meant to do. And they wanted to build it this high and this really monumental to show the power and the strength of the Canadian industry at the time, and especially the Canadian National Railroad. They were part of the building of this structure, and they really wanted to show how strong they were at the time, right? So it opened, the CN Tower opened on June 26th of 1976, and the construction of the tower cost approximately 63 million Canadian dollars. Equivalent 2020, 2021, we would be talking about 278 million Canadian dollars to create, to build. Yeah. One of the things that's really, really cool now, and this was very recently, the last time that I went to Canada was about 5 years ago. And I didn't do this and I regret not doing it, but they have a new attraction in the CN Tower called the Edge Walk. So this Edge Walk, you basically, if you see this dome over here, right? This is the main pod of the CN Tower. And this attraction allows you to walk on the dome, free hands. Yeah. So there is something that grabs you. So you see this kind of cord here, and it is holding you, but you get to walk on it, and your hands are free and you get to see it. So if you're afraid of heights, definitely not something for you, because you almost feel like nothing is holding you, nothing is protecting you. I didn't do it, and I'll be very honest. My mom almost had a heart attack. She said, please don't go on it. Please don't go on it. But I love heights. I love these type of amusement rides or just things that you can do that are really fun. And I wish I would have done it.
And you did it, Jen?
I didn't do it. No, my mom,
Oh,
she was so scared. She did not, she almost had a heart attack. She said, please don't do it. Please don't do it. So I didn't do it because she was very nervous. But I would have loved to. I would have absolutely loved to. So this is a new ride that you can go on in the CN Tower. The height, we're talking about 116 stories. It is extremely, extremely high, right? So yeah, if you're in for the thrill, this is definitely an attraction for you. Good. So that is Toronto. Those are the main areas, or the main kind of the places that I would recommend you visit. Of course, like I said, so many more. There are so many more that you can go visit in the city, but these are definitely really great ones. Let's move on to our next and final city, which is Montreal. Montreal, I would say, is my second favorite city in Canada. Absolutely wonderful. Freezing in February. So remember when I told you that I went to Ottawa in February? I did Montreal as well. Extremely, extremely cold. I would even say that it was colder, at least for me, than Toronto. But okay, let's take a look at Montreal. It is located in the province of Quebec. It is the second largest city in the country. And an interesting fact about Montreal, and I didn't know this actually, is that it is the home to the world famous Cirque du Soleil. Yeah, so this is where we get our Cirque du Soleil, from Montreal, Canada. So the first thing that I want to show you, and very similar to what I showed you from Vancouver, which was Stanley Park, we have a very similar one in Montreal called Mount Royal Park. And it is, again, absolutely stunning. It's on a mountain, and it's actually very interesting. It's called Mount Royal Park. And people say that it's because of this park that Montreal was named Montreal, because of this particular park, or this particular mount, right? It was inaugurated in 1876, and it was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. If you know anything about parks and you're a park fanatic, you may know that Frederick was the designer behind New York's Central Park. Yeah, so here we have this park as well. You get to see some beautiful pictures that I'm trying to show you here, just so that you can start to have an idea of what this park offers. It gives you a taste of the outdoors, and it allows you to leave the city and just kind of forget about the hustle and the bustle of the city, right? And you get to explore forested pathways. You can picnic on the side of the lake, skiing when it's winter. There's also activities in the park that you can do. There are these mounts that you can ski from. So it is absolutely amazing. One of the things that I found very interesting about this park is that it has this cross on the top of the mountain, right? This cross. No building in Montreal can be built taller than where this cross is, right? So this has to be the highest point in the city. Just pretty cool, right? So absolutely an amazing park, a great way to get away from the hustle and the bustle of the city. And one of the things that I find that's very interesting about these types of parks, and what I personally think that Canada is trying to do, is make these cities as livable as possible, so that they're not just concrete jungles, so that it's not just buildings and the work and constant, the fast-paced rhythm of these cities, but rather give spaces to the residents where they have moments of tranquility, moments of just getting away from the city, which I think is really great, right? If you think about livable cities. Bogota, for example, there are lots of parks in Bogota. And I think that that really helps because it's such a busy city and there's a lot of traffic and all of that, that these types of places really do make a difference to how livable the city can be. Okay, great. Something else that we're going to find in Montreal is the Notre Basilica. And here I have a question. Well, the first thing is that it was built between 1824 and 1825, and the towers on the side, so these towers over here, were built later in 1841 and 1843. These towers were built a little bit later, but this is the outside of the basilica. So I have a question for you guys. What is the difference between a cathedral and a basilica? Does anybody know?
Your questions are very intriguing and very difficult. I don't know if anybody knows the answer.
No,
Guys, do
I
you
didn't know the
know?
answer.
Look, Victor is saying the dome.
The dome. No, it's not the dome.
Yeah, we have the São Paulo Cathedral,
Yeah.
and we have the Basilica of Nossa Senhora
Okay.
Aparecida. I don't know, guys.
All right, well, let me tell you, the cathedral is a church within the jurisdiction of a bishop or an archbishop, right? It's still a church that has that jurisdiction. This archbishop or bishop is still responsible for the administration of this church, where a basilica is a title given to a church in recognition for its religious, historical, architectural, or artistic value. So the Pope has to give it that title. And Pope John Paul II raised the ranking of this church to basilica in 1982.
So basilicas are like blessed by the Pope.
They're given the title by the Pope, yeah,
Wow.
because they have such religious, historical, architectural significance and
A
value.
cathedral may become a basilica if the Pope.
Can be.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it can be if the Pope gives them that name. Yeah.
Indeed,
Cool.
Victor. We're learning not only English, but about culture too, and theology and religion and everything.
All right, so the church, if you look at this picture, I mean, wow, right? The interior of the church is among the most dramatic in the world and regarded a masterpiece of Gothic revival architecture, right? So if you start to think about what I'm talking about these buildings, for those of you that are religious, or for those people who visit these places because of religion, that's absolutely great. But there's also people who visit because of the architectural significance and beauty of these places, right? Approximately 11 million people visit Notre Dame Basilica every year. A lot of people come through this beautiful, absolutely stunning place. Okay, it is actually
we have someone who put up their hand, Jen. We have someone that is brave.
Yay!
And they have put up their hand. Let me see who they are. Who put up the hand? Oh. Giovanna, you have to help. It's not me.
Okay, wait, it's not showing to me.
Guys, who put up the hand? Who wants to ask Jen a question or make a comment? Just put up your hand. We'll give you the mic.
All right, well, don't worry. I'll be here for the next few minutes, so please feel free to raise your hand
go
again.
ahead. Go ahead, Jen. Go ahead.
And let me know. Awesome. So like I was saying, approximately 11 million people visit this beautiful monument in Montreal, making it one of the most visited places in North America. Okay. So when you guys were talking about what's probably the most visited, that's why I said Toronto and Montreal, because if you look at the places that they have and how many people go through these places yearly, a lot of people. Okay. So definitely one of the most visited. Another place that I absolutely think is fascinating and a must see in Montreal if you're there is the Montreal Botanical Garden. It houses about 22,000 plant species across 10 greenhouses, 30 gardens, and 185 acres of land. Look at these pictures. I mean, absolutely breathtaking. right? It was founded in 1931, and it scored a National Historic Site designated in 2007. The gardens are sorted by theme. So you're going to find Chinese era, Japanese, First Nations. If you know Aboriginal communities in Canada, there's the First Nations, cultural gardens, to the medicinal plants as well in this, and peace gardens in the Botanical Garden in Montreal. Okay, it was actually named a National Historic Site of Canada in 2008, as it is considered to be one of the most important botanical gardens in the world due to the extent of its collections and facilities. So there you go. Definitely a place to go visit. Now, you might be wondering what happens in the winter. Well, yes, the outdoor gardens of the Botanical Garden are bared and covered in the winter, and they're with snow. It's just pure snow that
Have you been there,
them.
Jen? Have you been to this one?
Unfortunately, no, I have not been, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Right? What I was able to see was absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, I didn't make it to the Botanical Garden, unfortunately. But in the winter, so from November to April, because that's when the winter starts, the cold starts to die down, there are greenhouses that you can visit. So it's open year round. So you can still visit the Botanical Gardens, but you won't see these outdoor gardens. You're gonna have to go to the greenhouses because those are open year round. Okay. So yeah, beautiful. Yeah, really, 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 really beautiful. So this is definitely a place to visit when you are in Montreal. 900,000 people approximately visit this botanical garden per year. Okay. All right, good. So those cover our 4 major cities in Canada. Like I said, we can spend hours here talking about the different places to visit within the country, but I just really wanted to highlight the main cities, and then just the main points that you can't not go to. And I should have went to this, but yes, absolutely. These are must-see places when you are in these cities. So just very quickly, and just to finish off, I always get these questions, right? And these questions are, when do I go to Canada? What should I eat if I'm there? Okay, so when to go? I hope that with what I've shown you and all of these different places, you're able to see that you can go any time of the year, really. It just depends on what you like. So if you want to go skiing and you like skiing and you like the snow and you like the cold weather, well, then definitely go in the winter time. Museums are still open. There's all of these different places that are still open in the winter because they're covered, right? And you're not going to be affected by the cold weather. So winter's definitely time that you can go. Summer, absolutely. There are beaches that you can go to. In Canada, yes, absolutely. There's one really close to Toronto called the Saiba Beach, and then you can definitely go to in the summertime. Maybe in the spring, you can do whitewater rafting, for example. These extreme sports that you can do in the spring, definitely some other time that you can go during the year. And if you like the change of color of the leaves and you like the cooler weather and you want to be able to explore the city without the extreme heat or the extreme cold, the autumn or the fall is actually a great time to go as well. So I really can't say go in the summer, because I think that a lot of people will say, oh, the summer, but there are so many different places that you can go to and really take advantage of all of the seasons. What can you eat? Well, one of the first things that you can try in Toronto or in Canada is our butter tarts. Okay, these butter tarts are basically like pastries. They're little pastries, and they're filled with butter, sugar, syrup, and egg. So you mix that all up. That's the inside of our tart. Sometimes you'll find dried fruit or pecans or nuts in these tarts, but they're very Canadian and they're very sweet and they're very delicious. So this is something that you should definitely try if you're in Canada. Something else you can try is poutine. So I don't know if anybody has ever heard of poutine. I personally like it. I didn't think I would, but I like it. And what is it? French fries. So the base of this dish, French fries, right? Then you have cheese curds, and then you have gravy on top. So it is pretty pretty strong. It's a strong dish, but it's really good. It's definitely a Canadian dish, right? It's definitely something that you're going to find a lot in Canada. Something else you're going to find is Canadian bacon. And one of the questions I always get is, what's the difference between Canadian bacon and just regular bacon? Canadian bacon is more like ham, right? So it's not the little strips that you're going to find in the US, for example, and it's not as fatty. There's more meat on it. So you'll find it, usually it's rounded. It's not strips, it's more rounded. It kind of looks like ham because it's not from the fat belly of the pig. The Canadian bacon is typically from the loin of the pig, right? So it's a lot more beefy. So it's a lot more meaty than anything else. A lot of people know it as Canadian bacon, but in Canada, we just call it back bacon, right? The back bacon. That's what we call it in Canada. So that's kind of what it looks like. Super delicious, lots of taste, really good. Definitely try it. And of course, I have to mention it again because it's very Canadian. It's maple syrup. And you were going to use it for pancakes, for French toast, for oatmeal porridge. We use maple syrup a lot. So if you've ever had the opportunity to try maple syrup, it's sweet. There is a taste that's different from regular syrup, right? And what I think it's interesting about maple syrup is that it's a seasonal crop. And the reason why is because the tree that we get the maple syrup from, it really begins to allow us to make maple syrup by the end of the winter, right? So because it's seasonal, it is expensive. Maple syrup tends to be a little bit pricier than you would get regular syrup for. It's because of it that it's a seasonal crop, and also because it's labor intensive. So making it is also really interesting, and definitely a Canadian favorite. Yeah. So I hope that with my presentation, I was able to, give you a little piece, a little taste of what Canada has to offer, the different cities that there are, and all the different things that you can do. I really hope that you guys get the chance to visit it. Like I said, any time of the year that you can go, definitely take advantage of this beautiful country. And thanks so much for joining me today. Are there any questions?
Wow, Jen, this was a wonderful presentation. Carlos has raised his hand. Let me see if I can give Carlos the mic now.
Sure.
Now I can allow you to talk. Go ahead, Carlos. Send your question or your comment. You have to unmute yourself. Carlos?
Hi, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Hi, Carlos.
And thank you for your presentation. I would like to know about the living expenses in big cities in Canada.
The living expenses?
Yeah.
Expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Toronto's expensive. Toronto's is definitely expensive, but I think that it compensates with minimum wage, right? So Toronto is one of the most expensive cities, I would think, as in Canada. I can tell you about Toronto just because I live there. The minimum wage is pretty high. So you can say that, the standard of living and the cost of living is going to reflect in the minimum wage in the city. But I can tell you that Toronto's high. The real estate in Toronto is extremely expensive. And the reason why is because the space to build within the city is minimal. What's built is built. There's no room for more within the city of Toronto. So if you sell a home or an apartment within the city, it's extremely expensive. That's why people move to Greater Toronto area. That is not necessarily in the city, but a little bit in the outskirts, because you're going to find better prices for your money. You're going to find better prices, really. And you're still close enough to the city that you can drive in, and you should be okay. But yeah, Toronto is expensive.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Absolutely.
Carlos, for approaching. Guys, anybody else want to say hello to Jen or just ask a question? We're going to give it a bit more time. And Jen, it was a wonderful presentation. We had a
thank
huge
you. My pleasure.
audience. It was very nice. Thank you so much. Hope you've enjoyed yourself as well, talking a little bit about your home country, right?
Yeah, I had a great time. Thank you everybody for the company, and thanks everybody for joining. So
Jen, any of those different treats that you have told us about, you can eat in Bogota, in Colombia?
I feel like I've seen maple syrup in the airport. So when I've traveled, I've seen maple syrup in the airport. I don't know where to get them here. Canadian bacon? I don't know. I've never asked. Everything else, and poutine you can make yourself, right? It's just French
Okay.
fries. Well,
Do you cook yourself some Canadian things at home?
no. I do not. I do not cook myself any of the Canadian things, but hopefully I can get to Canada soon enough to get some maple syrup, and I will bring that over for sure, and try some of these amazing things that I haven't tasted for a very long time. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thanks everyone for
you.
joining us.
Thank
Giovanna, thank you very much for being with us. And please
Jen.
watch out for the next Berlitz Talks in 2022. Have a wonderful Christmas, a happy New Year, everyone. Jen, all the best. Thank you for joining us, Jen.
To you guys as well. No, thank you for the opportunity. We'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.